this is Jill Breit, Executive Director of TAUNY, coming to you live from the TAUNY Center in downtown Canton today. I'm here with a live studio audience for a screening of the documentary Bob Jones, Cranberry Lake Carver and Decoy Maker, directed by Emma French. We're going to watch the documentary, and then afterwards we're going to have a conversation with Emma and with Bob and with his wife Linda about carving and about filmmaking and a lot of interesting topics. So please sit back, relax, get ready to enjoy yourself, and I'll see you back here in about 10 minutes.
My name is Bob Jones. I'm 81. I've been carving decoys for, I guess, about 65 years. And I got started in 1953. We wanted to go duck hunting, and we couldn't afford to buy decoys. A friend of mine, his dad was one of the best carvers in the country at the time. And he got us to carving our decoys. And that's how we got started. These were probably two of the first ones that I made right here. This is a bubblehead decoy. Was made right around probably 1953 or 54. It's hollow cedar, and it's just strictly a hunting decoy. It has some bird shot in it still, but it still has the original paint from the 50s. This one was made several years later. This was a broadbill, which is hollow inside. We was doing it for just at the time for hunting, and then decoys were becoming popular for they've always been collectibles, but really getting popular in the 50s and 60s from two old-time carvers that lived in Chrisfield, Maryland. Lem and Steve Ward, they were two brothers, and they were the ones that carved together. They had an old barn on the bayfront of the Chesapeake Bay, and that's where they did all their carving. You have to visualize the duck. You know, I know most of them from hunting the ducks, the shapes. If you're not sure, you have to check a reference book. And then you sketch the pattern out on a piece of paper. Once you get it the way you like it, you transfer it to a piece of wood, and you carve it by hand using a knife, several knives, a draw knife, smoke shaves, and some little machine tools like a Fordham tool to shape the block of wood. Then I ship it out, and I make the pattern myself out of hardwood from one of the machines I use. Sometimes I use hard maple. Sometimes we use aluminum for the master pattern on the machine. I worked on a railroad for 20 years, and I did the decoys during the day. I worked on a railroad at night and did the decoys in the daytime. So it became too much after a while, so I left the railroad in 1981 after 20 years, and I went into doing the decoys full time. And then that developed into a business. We started doing wildlife art shows all up and down the East Coast and as far as Santa Rosa, California, North Carolina. And then we got into doing the fish, and we started getting into craft shows.
I enjoy doing the shows and meeting people, and I give Bob a break so he can go get a burger somewhere.
And whatever, if there was a decoy show, we was probably in at the time.
Well, since Bob and I got married, it's been an adventure because we've done a lot of traveling and met a lot of people. Bob well known among the carvers, and I think that pleases me and just makes me aware of how many people he has touched, you know, in his life.
That's dusty. We have about 150 to 200 decoys, maybe more. This is a part of my collection, and most of my collection is, there's two birds, the male and female. This is the male wood duck. It's a hollow cedar decoy. It's a New Jersey style because it's kind of rounded. Instead of a flat bottom, it's rounded, and they rock like that in the water. This is a hooded merganser. This was made by a fellow by the name of John Holloway, who's another decoy maker. This is also hollow cedar. It has a weight embedded in the bottom that's lead to keep the decoy upright, so when it turns over, it flips back up again. And of course, it has your leather for the decoy weight and line that you throw in the water. And then this one, a little story behind it. This is a old squaw, or they call it now long-tailed duck. It's hollow pine. It was made by the fellow by the name of Harry Waite, who's since passed away. But he made his decoys a little bit larger than they should be. And back in the 70s, he took a decoy, he hollowed it out, he put an 1.25 inch round hole on it with a wooden plug that was screw in, so when he passed away, his ashes would be put in that decoy and set loose on Chesapeake Bay and hope another hunter would find it, put it on the mantle. So Sportsafield, the magazine, got a hold of that, and they did a 2-page article in one of their issues about these coffin ducks. He sold a lot of them, but people were using them for coffins for their Labrador retrievers and their dogs and stuff, where they would put the ashes inside the decoy.
As I said, each phase has been an adventure, learning what kind of ducks they were. Because if I didn't, I got McDonald's. If I knew the ducks, we got a nice steak dinner.
My style would basically be a Barnegat Bay style or a Chesapeake style. Chesapeake style was more of a flat bottom. Barnegat Bay had a rounded bottom to the decoy. Delaware River was also rounded, but they had a carved V-wing like this in the back. They were all basically the same no matter what species it was. So I could look at a decoy and just about tell you what part of the country it's from. So that's it, and I have a lot of others. I have, like I said, 150 or so decoys in the collection from different people that I knew, that I hunted with at the time, or I knew personally. And that's the reason I bought them. At the time, I didn't buy them for the monetary value. It was just something personal with me and the fellas that carved them.
It's all been very interesting, and you get to hear other carvers tell their stories, and you realize how much you have in common with them. And the newer carvers are totally different than the old carvers that Bob and I knew. When you talk with them, you heard stories, and good, bad, and the ugly. When Bob and I were first going together, I was really just amazed at his shop, and meeting some of his friends and things that they had done, I thought, I can do that. So I made a replica of Bob's shop that he had down in Wading River, New Jersey, complete with a dog.
It's all enjoyable to me. I get disgusted some days like anybody does, but you get up the next day and you're twice as better. And my good wife, Linda, keeps me going. She's behind me. I couldn't do it without her 100%. Linda says she doesn't paint. She does the best part of the business. She takes care of the books and keeps me straight on that, and that's half of the business right there. And then she's behind almost everything I do. If I want to buy a new piece of machinery, she kind of looks at me a little funny sometimes, but we kind of work it out. Just continue doing it as long as I can, and as long as my hands work and my feet get me out to the shop, I'll be able to do it. Maybe to 100, but I don't know. So.
Welcome back to the TAUNY Center in downtown Canton. So we hope you've enjoyed watching Bob Jones, Cranberry Lake Carver and Decoy Maker. I'm in the studio right now with Bob and his wife Linda Jones and Emma French, who's the director of this documentary, which was produced with Adirondack Explorer magazine. So Emma, I'm going to start with you. We're going to have a conversation here in the studio, and I'm here with a live audience, and we'll be taking questions from the audience, but I have a few things I'd like to talk to you about first. So Emma, why don't you start by telling me a little bit about your background and how you got into producing videos?
Oh boy, okay. So in high school I did a couple of small projects for classes, and I enjoyed them a lot. I entered a few contests outside of the area and did pretty well, or better than I expected, and so I was lucky enough to get into the college of my dreams, which had a film and television program, and kind of took off from there. And this was a great project to do between semesters, and yeah, now we're here and I'm having a lot of fun with it.
And which college are you attending?
I'm attending Boston University.
Boston University, and you grew up in Potsdam, New York. Okay, great. How did this particular project come about?
Came from my dad. He found Mr. and Mrs. Jones in the woods, and he was doing an article for them, and he was so excited about it that he invited me and some other family members to come meet them, and it was just so nice meeting them. They were so nice, and what Mr. Jones is doing is really interesting. And we got in contact with Adirondack Explorer and a couple other people, and had the idea of doing a little video. It was kind of supposed to be a small thing at first, but of course now we're here, and I'm so pleased that it's been interesting to other people than just us.
So your dad literally ran into the Jones in the woods?
He was driving around Cranberry Lake and saw the fish hatchery sign outside your shop, and obviously inside there was a lot more than just fish being hatched. So
Wonderful. So what did you know about decoy carving before you met the Jones?
nothing. I knew absolutely nothing. I thought you just sat down with a little knife and carved some fish, but there's obviously a lot more to that than I first expected.
Yeah, and you must have been quite overwhelmed almost by the number of decoys you saw when you went into the Jones house.
The number of decoys, the size of the shop, the kind of machinery, all the different steps, it was completely overwhelming. So even just going over the footage that we took, it was like a new thing every single time we had to revisit that. It was really interesting.
Well, one of the things that I've learned here in recent years, because we've gotten into doing some video production work here, is how much footage there actually is relative to the final product.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people watching a video don't realize that for a 10-minute piece you might look at, there might actually be hours of footage behind that, right?
No, there's so much footage, and I really wish that we could have included all of it, but of course, I mean, what we just watched was pretty much the best of the best.
Yeah.
What we got.
So, Bob and Linda, what did you think when you got contacted about being featured in a video?
Well, we was kind of surprised, and Tom, I guess, was on a trip to take some trails down there, to walk some trails, and he stopped in the shop, I think expecting to see some live trout and stuff, and here was with the fish.
And this is Tom French, Emma's dad.
And his face kind of lit up a little bit at the time. And he toured the shop, and he really liked it, stayed for about a half hour, and then he had called back, I guess, a week later and said, how would you like to make an article, do an article maybe in a magazine? And Linda and I looked at each other and, yeah, we can do that maybe. And then it became with the movie with Emma, and everything went pretty good after that. It was a surprise to us. So.
And
Yeah.
we were surprised how much time it takes to set everything
Oh,
up.
yeah.
And then you have to edit and cut some stuff out. Tom wanted to take a few pictures. He took 80.
Yeah.
So, more than enough, I guess.
Yeah.
But it was as interesting to us to learn about filmmaking as it was for Emma and Tom to
Yeah.
come and see our shop.
And those 80 photographs, even though they might not all get used in the exhibit that's here, and I should say that we are also today at the TAUNY Center opening an exhibit of decoys made by Bob over the years, going back to some of his earliest years carving,
Yes.
right up through the recent times.
Yeah, from 1953, some of my first decoys, I was 13, and then right up to the 70s, and then when I got involved in the business, and up to present day, and then some of the collection that I have, and what's in the box over here, we have probably 150 more in the closet at home we haven't dug out yet with this place.
Right, so one of the
Yeah.
cases in the exhibit is a selection of pieces of other carvers that you collected.
Yes.
And for those of you who are watching us, this exhibit will be at the TAUNY Center through June 28th. I believe that's the last Saturday in June. I think I'm getting that date correct. And you're welcome to come anytime during our open hours to see those. We'll be doing some posting about that, but we'll be referencing some of the things that are in that exhibit today. So you talk about this a little bit in the video, Bob, but tell us a little bit more now what really piqued your interest about getting into carving.
Well, I guess about 13 years old, and 3 or 4 fellows we wanted to go hunting, and we couldn't afford to buy decoys at the time. So one of the fellows' dad was the best carver in the country, one of the best, and he showed us how to carve the decoys, and we made them for ourselves to hunt with. And his decoys at the time, he had a little display in Dry Dock Savings Bank in New York City with 3 or 4 decoys. And he got enough orders for that he couldn't fill if he lived to be 300 years old. So I started carving, and it just, something comes in the heart. You like it, you do it. And it just stuck with me the whole life like that.
Yeah.
Not only the hunting end of it, of course I haven't hunted in 8 years or so, but it's just creating something with your hands and making something and painting it, and then have people appreciate it, you know. It makes me feel good, and it got us by most of the time. We had good times and bad like anybody else, but it's been pretty good.
Now, when you first started carving, the expectation generally, especially if you went to shows, is that these were working decoys.
Yes.
And they would even do things like float them in tanks, right?
Yes, we did a show in Virginia Beach where the Virginia Beach Fire Company would come in and make huge pools with canvas, and they were about 6 inches deep. And they would float all the old decoys in the pools for people to come in and see the legs of the show. And there was a fellow there from Maine that made a little rowboat that was about 2 foot long. And it had a fella on oars, and it had a little lad in the front. But it was just sitting there. All of a sudden it started to move, and the wooden man in the boat could steer it just like you do with a regular rowboat, and the dog's tail would wag and he had remote control. He made it all himself. But it was quite a show at Virginia Beach. It was huge.
But they would put the ice in the water, and then they would use a pole and tip it over, and then to see if they righted back up, and that would help. When they did the contest, they give points. So
Yeah, the big contest in Ocean City, I guess.
Yes.
They would float them in tanks, and they had novice, amateur, and professional classes. And they would have about 10 different carvers, decoys in a tank at one time. There were 6 judges with maybe 3-foot poles, and they would turn the ducks upside down and see how the water would run over the bill and how the ducks would float and how they looked, and that's how they judged them and how they won the contest like that. It was quite a thing.
When did it start to change that the focus moved away from carvers making working ducks or working decoys to more the mantelpiece kind of decorative? What was the period when that changed?
I would say in the 60s it really took off with people collecting the decoys. The decoys were going up in value, and they really went up in value and peaked probably in the 90s, where some of your best carvers today, their stuff still holds a high price, like the Ward brothers. If you find one of their decoys, they probably start at $8,000 and up to, one of them went at auction over $100,000. So they're still out there, and but it peaked in the 60s and kind of climbed up until the 90s, until they started getting the imports in, I guess from China, and they were painted gaudy, but people just saw it as a $20 duck. They didn't know the difference, and they would buy that. But now it's coming back again. People can see that it was a folk art that actually started in this country through the Indians, who used to make decoys out of straw. And then it got into the wooden decoys and stuff, and it worked itself that way.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, in terms of you getting into real production of decoys,
Yes.
in the video,
Yes.
there is a very impressive lathe,
Yes.
really wide.
Yes.
Can you tell us more about that machine?
Well, that machine, we had a commercial sawmill in Pennsylvania, and we still made, we had sold the business when we moved to Pennsylvania, but I missed it and we got right back into it again, and we was looking for machinery. And we used to send wood out to Montana every month, and I knew this machine was in Minnesota where it was manufactured. a fella had bought it to make cigar store Indians. And I would call him every year for about 6 years. And finally he said, "You still have interest?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "I can carve faster by hand than I can with the machine." So I knew he was doing something wrong. So we delivered a load of wood to Montana. On the way back, we picked the machine up. It was all apart. We got it assembled. We got it set up, and we started it. And I knew right away what his problem was. He had the wrong size motors on the machine. The spindles were already running half the speed, and we had to put new motors on it, and that was it 30 years ago on that one. So,
Well, wonderful.
and they went out of business. That company went out of business in probably the late 70s, early 80s, that manufactured that machine. And you can still find them today, but most of them, I guess around 15 years ago, went overseas or they scrapped them. So, yes.
Yeah. Are there particular birds that you especially like to carve?
Well, I like to do them all. I like doing the loon. I like doing the swans. I really like doing them all. The one I hate to do is the wood duck, so I just haven't done one in a while.
And why is that?
Well, just a lot of work to get the colors to blend right, to come in, and I can make more money doing a swan that's white than making a wood duck that is 18 different colors.
Yeah, understood.
But really, they're all wood ducks.
They're all.
Yes, exactly. Now, Linda, you took an interest in Bob's carving right away when you met him, didn't you?
Yeah, I was really impressed. A friend of mine introduced me to Bob, and we drove down through the pine lands in New Jersey, down to the piney woods we call it, and walked into the shop, and I was just blown away, to see all the machines and the noise and the smells of the pine and everything. I was impressed by this guy who could take a piece of wood and make a duck. So,
How long was it before you got a decoy as a gift?
I'm still a baby. I've been humbled that we're seconds, they didn't do so.
What about the one you did for class?
Oh, yeah, I was so interested, I decided to take a class in carving.
And surprising.
And surprising. So Vince Giannetti was the teacher, and we went through 10 weeks of carving, and it was looking pretty good, So the last night of class, we were to paint it, and I had it sitting on the coffee table, and my father had come in, he was eating dinner with us, and he said, "How's your duck?" And I said, "It's there on the coffee table," and he was looking at it, and I went to check dinner, and I hear this, "Oh, no." And I go running in the living room, and my nag puppy ate the bill off of it.
Oh!
Shoot it right off. So I took it to class, and all the guys were teasing me, "You have a lab puppy." And yeah. So it's somewhere around, it has a block of wood that Bob put on the front, and I just haven't gotten back into the carving. But it's definitely a craft. It's fun to try it. Wear a lot of Band-Aids, but it takes a lot of skill to be able to do that, which Bob does. He does all the original patterns himself and tweaks them here and there. And when he's satisfied with it, then we'll have it cast up.
Well, I couldn't do it without Linda. She was behind me the whole way, really. So.
Well, and I remember when I met you, which now was quite a number of years ago,
Yes.
and associated with you going to shows. It's very clear that Linda has a very important role in the business.
She
and
does.
it's not only supportive of you doing this, but has a lot to do with the success of the business. And,
Yes, it's a team effort.
Yeah.
It's a team effort.
Well, talk a little bit about going to the shows, because I know you really like that, and you enjoy talking to people at the shows.
Yeah, we have a list of things that we need to include when we're packing. And we pack the truck and the trailer and everything else and get out to the show. And then it's, easy to unload stuff, but it's getting it organized. Set up the tables, get the covers on, put up the shutters, put up the electric, get all that wired up, which is what I do. And Bob hauls in the boxes and stuff. And getting them set up and kind of putting them so that they have the eye appeal. And we meet a lot of people from all over, everywhere. I can't even begin to think of, international, everything.
All over the country.
Yeah. And we both have a good sense of humor, so people kind of pick up on that. And we always make a point of being standing when we're at the show and talking to people. You know, we don't necessarily care if they buy something, but if they, you know, thanks for stopping by, thanks for taking a look. And we noticed a lot of the craft shows we go to, people don't do that. So if you're proud of your craft, you know, you need to share that with people. And we've made friends over the years. When we would do shows, we'd hook up with another couple, you know, similar interests and whatever. And then we would get a room at the residence inn, for example, and it would have a full living room, dining room, kitchen, and then 2 separate bedrooms, bath, and everything. So we'd team up with another couple. Bob and I, being the seniors, we'd get a senior rate split, and we'd be able to do the show, come back, sit, relax, talk about our kids, and share pictures and business problems or whatever. And it was so much more convenient and cozy, rather than in a hotel room where you're liable to fall off the side of the bed. But we've done that with several couples, you know, and they've gradually retired or whatever. But you find there's a lot of talent out there, and as I said, a lot of crafts. And if you're proud of your craft, you're gonna show that.
You're going to show that.
Well, you have to engage people a little bit too. You know, you just can't sit and think it's going to sell itself, which sometimes it does, but you have to talk to people.
And people like the stories as much as they like
They
the
do.
skills.
Yes.
And there's clearly a lot of skill involved in
Yes.
this, but people do also respond to the stories.
Right.
They do.
Yeah. And I have lots more questions I could ask you, but I want to give people in the audience an opportunity to ask some questions. So yes, we have a question right here.
So when did you guys relocate to Cranberry Lake from Waddington?
That was in 2016.
16, yeah.
And have you found that your business changed by being more centrally into that part?
We're closer to a lot of the customer base with the camps around the lakes and so forth. A lot of our shows are locally or throughout the Adirondack, so it's kind of centralized there. And we used to do a show in Connecticut, Massachusetts, locally. What we call that local, because we used to go across the whole country at one time. So it saved us at least an hour and a half sometimes.
We used to come into Tupper and say, oh, an hour and a half, we'll be home. 20 minutes, we'll be home.
So is there anything else that factored into your decision to move to Cranberry Lake? Or?
Well, we knew we wanted to be in the woods, preferably on water, and level ground.
For
And
the
everything
show.
we looked at, nothing but rocks and mountains and all. And this just kind of hit all our points that we wanted. And we were able to get the shop up and running. And, you know, we've met a lot of people.
We was always kind of rural. Anyway, in Pennsylvania, we had 150 acres up in the mountains where we had the sawmill. And then in Waddington, we had a motel for several years, and we bought the farm up the road that had 300 acres, and then it became too much to manage, and we found this place, so it worked out pretty good. So I could look at my paint shop and fall asleep watching the ducks go by and river once in a while.
Yes.
That's nice. Yes.
When you go out to your shop,
Yes.
how do you decide what bird am I going to do today?
Well, I try to figure out ahead of time the shows coming up and what I really need. And what I really need sometimes is really what I don't like to make. I enjoy doing it, but I have favorites. So I try to base it that we've been doing the show so long, we try to figure out, like for this summer coming up, what sells the most for us at the shows. And we're always changing things around and talking about that. You know, what sells this year might not sell next year. So I try to be a little bit ahead. I try to get some stuff made up in the wintertime during the winter months, so we're not rushing throughout the summer, but you're still making stuff between shows in the summertime a lot too. We do some mail order work, not a whole lot, because really what we do is hands-on. People like to pick it up and they like to feel the finish that I put on it, and that's what sells it. But we have developed a little bit of work through the computer, the website, But advertising now is a big thing. We're gonna do that where we do to try to get people to come to the shop. The state put up 2 signs for us on Route 3. Of course, it's the Adirondack colors, it's dark brown and yellow, and it says wooden fish hatchery. So people come in to see us and they're looking for the fish. But then they start laughing, and once they stop, they're hooked. They buy something usually, so in the fish lake,
Yeah, that's very clever. I wonder if somebody in the audience would be willing to grab a swan out of the exhibit, and maybe even that heron that's sitting on the ledge. We'll bring those over and have you talk a little bit about those. Because I know from our experience here at TAUNY that those are very popular pieces. So thank you very much. So here's your swan.
Yes.
Tell us something about this.
Okay, this is made from, we use pine, New York pine and New York cedar. This one is done with a stain. I make most of the stains myself. And this is a white stain, but I make it so I transparent to get the wood grain to come through. It's a little different. And then the neck, the story is with the neck, people like to see the twist in it, and they say, well, how do you get that? And I said, well, if I have oatmeal, it's twisted more. If I have eggs and home fries and bacon, it's a little straighter. So that works out pretty good. But we do them in a white, we do them in a dark walnut, and the cedar is a rustic swan, and I'll burn it with a torch, black, and then steel wool it. And then I'll paint it with a real thin coat of paint. Then I do something to it I don't tell people, then I wax them to get that look.
It's beautiful. It's very elegant.
Well, thank you.
I think it's a very elegant look.
And it has a double-ended screw here, one here. There's 2 pieces in the body and there's 2 pieces in the neck. That's the way we make it. So.
Yeah, beautiful.
Thank you.
People might be interested to hear about the Wanakina Bridge piece.
Oh, the Wanakina Bridge, which was a footbridge, it's been there forever, but it got washed out several years ago with an ice flow. And they had a fundraiser and they needed $250,000 to rebuild the bridge. So since we've been up there, we would donate a duck every year for the auction. So I said to the fellow, I said, well, give me a piece of wood from the old bridge and I'll make a decoy for you. And we did, and it went to auction, and it went for $6,200, and a woman from Wanakina bought it. He used to walk over the bridge.
Wonderful.
And she loved it, but there was a guy from Maryland that was bidding against her. So he called me a week later, and they were ripping down a homestead, and they wanted to know if I could make a decoy out of the beam from the house. So it was just too much to get involved in with everything else. It would probably be a secondary business if I wanted to do it. So.
Yeah, that's very interesting, actually. Very cool. All right, let's swap out and let's look at that heron if somebody could bring that forward. And then maybe we'll also look at wood duck. I think there's wood duck handy, I'm not sure. But yeah, this is a big piece, yeah.
Yes.
Got it?
Yeah.
All right.
Now this, we made a real big one at one time. It was 5 foot tall. And I walked out of the house in Waddington, and there was a heron sitting on top of the barn. And I said, Linda, can you get a picture of that? I gotta make a smaller one. It looks small from far away, so the big one I can't make anymore. We came out with this, I guess, 3 years ago.
Right.
And it's been a pretty good mover. The difference with this is we put 2 legs on it, and the other big one just had one piece of rod that held it up. And some restaurants would buy them and put them in cattails so you come in the front door of the restaurant. So.
Oh, that's great.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this is done in a rustic style where I burn it with a torch and then steel wool it, and then I put a wax finish over it. Yeah.
Lovely, lovely.
How many pieces of wood?
There's 2 pieces in the body and 2 in the neck. The big one I used to have 3 pieces in the body and 2 in the neck.
Yeah, very
And
nice.
this is a cedar block on the bottom.
And this one is a canvas back, right? This is
No,
canvas back.
that's a red-breasted merganser.
Oh, a merganser.
Yeah.
Well, let's look at it. Here it is.
And this is
I guess we'll let it sit there.
this is a New Jersey coastal style bird, and they were all rounded on the bottom instead of a flat bottom. And this one was made. The original one I made was probably in 1973, but we've been making them quite a while. But I just changed the paint style on it. But yeah, this is one that they would use for hunting. This is solid, but they would hollow this out and make it a hollow decoy inside. Yes.
So Merviances are good eating?
No.
No, they aren't.
Explain how you hollow them out. You explained that to me recently. How do you hollow out the decoy?
Okay, usually if the hollow decoy, you make it in 2 pieces. And then after you carve the decoy, you split the decoy in half, and then we used to use a chisel, a big chisel to hollow it out. Now I use a big bit, and we hollow them out, then glue them, and then nail them back together for the 2 pieces. To make them lighter, they would float better in the water, they would look more realistic when they were floating in the water.
Bob, we have a message here from somebody in our online audience. Your daughter Tracy says hello.
Yeah.
That's who she's watching. And that reminds me, if you are watching us online, please feel free to type in questions or comments. We are monitoring that, and we will be happy to take those questions or comments. So let's go back to the audience. Do you have any other questions here?
Decoy styles. They're different styles of decoy.
Yes.
They're all related to the places where they originated?
Yes, the decoys, I can look at a decoy usually and tell you what part of the country it had come from. Like Delaware River is a rounded bottom and they have a tail that comes up. They're all the same no matter what species it is. Jersey style are like this, rounded, but they're long and torpedo. Illinois River, Upper Chesapeake Bay has a, really I call it a crude decoy, it's not that, but that's the way they make them. Your Lower Chesapeake Bay, where the Ward brothers were from, is a beautiful decoy that they make. So all parts of the country have their own style of ducks that they make.
And of course, in the Adirondacks, people just love the loons.
Yes, oh, the loons,
Loons
yes.
are very popular in the Adirondacks.
Yeah, the loons have done very well for us, and I enjoy doing them. I was up at 5:30 this morning painting loons, so I'm getting ready for some of the shows.
What do you predict for the future of decoy carving, Bob? What do you see with younger people coming in?
I don't see too many younger people taking it up today like you used to. There used to be a lot of young fellas in the contest in Ocean City, Maryland was a huge convention center, and they had tables. They must have been 5 tables, 200 foot long, with different classes on the tables, and you don't see that anymore. So I don't know what's going to happen. I think decoys will increase in value like they have, but with new carvers, I hope people take it up, but I'm not really sure.
Yeah. So, and if people want to be able to see the video again, where would they be able to find it?
Adirondack Explorer should have.
On their YouTube channel. Okay, so if you go to the Adirondack Explorer YouTube channel, you'll be able to access this video that we've watched today and watch it over and over again and share it with others. So Emma, what do you think you're going to work on next?
I honestly don't know. This was kind of a big project for me, so I might just need the summer off. I'll do some canoeing trips with Dad, and I mean, the Jones are so welcoming. They've offered to let my dad and I put our canoe in their back river, so maybe I'll just keep visiting with them for a little bit.
But this may have piqued your interest for doing more North Country topics.
Oh yeah, so
right?
North Country topics and definitely documentary styles. It's really interesting talking to people about things that they love to do.
Yeah, I agree with you very much about that. That it's wonderful to talk to people about passion and deep knowledge and skill.
And Tom and Emma did a great job. I mean, I was nervous, but when we sit with them for 5 minutes, you kind of relax, and they're just so professional and know what they're doing. So.
Yeah. Is there anything else you'd like the audience to know? Anything I haven't asked you about that you'd like to talk about?
Well, it just, I used to hunt a lot, and I don't hunt anymore, which I kind of miss, but at a certain time of life, you just got to stop things. And I still like doing decoys. I'll be 82 in July, and if I can live to be 90 or 95, I'll keep doing them if I can.
That's great. Wonderful. And are there any other questions from the audience today?
Actually, this is for either Mr. Orphis' Junior, but you both mentioned that shows part of it's the ducks and part of it's the stories you tell. And I was wondering if either of you had a favorite story you like to tell.
What was your favorite story from the shows?
We just, we did a show in Santa Rosa, California, 1981, and we we were selling unfinished decoys at the time, not the fish. We didn't have the fish. And what we did, we notched all the heads to the body in the shop and numbered them. And then we shipped all the decoys to the chairman of the show in Santa Rosa to his home and flew out. And then we picked all the decoys up, took them back to the motel room, and we're trying to assemble them. Who's got head number 8 or 9? And the lady from the motel came in and she looked at them and left the room real quick. So luckily we sold out of the decoys at the show. And then we rented a car and toured Northern California through the Redwoods and up to Lake Tahoe and different places. And then flew back, and I bought some decoys to bring back on the plane, which was a job, so that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, we traveled to Las Vegas several different times, and we always tried to tie something in, to stop and see the Grand Canyon or the Precious Moments Chapel or whatever. This one time we said, well, we're going to stop and see Hoover Dam. And we had the truck packed. We didn't have the trailer with us at the time, but Bob had these big wooden boxes and he had stenciled fresh fish on them. Mm-hmm. And the truck was packed, and this big burly guy, security guard, comes out, what's in the box, and he wanted us to unpack the whole truck so he could check. And along comes this other fellow and he goes, hey, he says, what's your license plate? We said, Fish Decoy. He says, hot stand. He said, you're okay, let him through. His parents lived in Governor.
Oh, that's wonderful.
He let us through with no problem. The other fellows he couldn't quite figure that out.
Yeah, that was at the Hoover Dam.
Yeah,
I forgot about that.
Yeah, we've had some really good trips and
Met a lot of nice people.
fantastic people.
Miss Kitty. Miss Kitty.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, we did a show in 68, and I made oval wooden plaque with a half a decoy on it with a piece of cow chain that you would hang on the wall. And this woman comes down the aisle with a fellow with her and stopped, and she wanted 2 of the plaques. And I looked at her and I said, you're Amanda Blake, aren't you? And she said, yes, I am. So we talked for about 20 minutes. And I said, would you please sign my book? She said, I'd be glad to. So we met her, and then we met Burl Ives, but I don't know where his signature is. We have it on somewhere.
Act, sure.
And then Linda was teaching at the time, and, well, you can tell them that story.
I was filling in for some teachers in the Greenbank School, which is a tiny little school from kindergarten to 8th grade. They had 65 kids. And everybody, team taught. If you played piano, you were a music teacher. If you could pick up a paintbrush, you were the art teacher, and everybody would swap off. And we heard that President Bush Sr. was coming to speak to a group of teachers. And we knew we were going, and one of the girls said, why don't you take one of your Bob's Dubs up there? So I did, and I had written on the bottom to President Bush from the smallest public school in the state of New Jersey. So of course you go in, security guards fly all over, looking at you and everything. So what's in the bag? I said, it's a decoy from southern New Jersey. I said, for President Bush. And they're looking at it, flipping it around, and they said, he's going to keep this one. So 2 weeks later, I got a thank you note from President Bush for the...
Which is in the exhibit. It is here in the exhibit.
Yes,
Yeah.
so we were real tickled about that. But we've enjoyed it. It's been fun. We get a lot of people that stop in now when we're down in Cranberry. Last year we had, Texas, Idaho, Alaska. There was another one. Alabama, yeah. That either came to visit friends and family, or they were here on business or whatever. Yeah, passing through and stopped. So we welcome visitors anytime.
So now instead of you traveling out to quite as many shows, the world comes to you.
They're coming to us.
Yeah,
which is really neat. Yeah.
That's what we're looking for, to try to do.
Yeah. And just one point, we hadn't talked about the fish earlier, but we got into talking about the fish. So just for our audience out there, and these are featured here, at some point in addition to the duck decoys, you started carving fish as well.
Yes, when I said before, we had sold the business when we moved up to Pennsylvania. We opened up a commercial sawmill. I missed the decoy business right away. And I said, I got to do something with wood besides milling it all the time. So we got into it with the fish. And we were looking for a type of machine. And Pennsylvania had it was called a Pennsylvania Bulletin, which was all kinds of machinery and bids on forest products, on wood. But I saw a machine in there that was listed in Massachusetts. And the guy was making ash handles for axes and hammers and stuff and selling them at craft shows, but he had the machine. So Linda and I went down and we purchased the machine, and then we didn't know how to get it home. Well, the fellow that delivered wood from the sawmill, he used to deliver to Montana and down south in different places. He had to make a trip to Boston, and he had a refrigerated truck, so on the way back when it was empty, he picked up this machine and put it in the back of the refrigerated truck for us and got it home. Then we bought a big 19,000-pound planer, and I didn't realize that when it got to the mill, we had no way to unload it. We had to call for a crane to come in the next day to take it off the flatbed trailer.
But we did the fish, and we
We
actually added more species.
Yeah, we did the fish, and I think the first thing we did was the big loon, and then some ducks again, so
Yeah.
that's where it's developed from then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we've had a lot of fun. A couple of years ago, we did the Cranberry fish auction. And we gave, through the little group that started it, we gave them about 80 fish. And they would go, here, see what you can do with it. And they had the auction, and we were able to raise $10,000, and it stayed right there in the community. We did a couple scholarships. We did a donation to the high school library and high school art department. Cranberry's library. They bought picnic tables and benches and a couple concerts. And then they wanted to do a paddle, so then we got involved with that too. So we saw all kinds of ideas that people painted them, wrapped them with wool and put buttons down the side.
Well, the one we have here in one of the booths, a friend of ours on the lake who's 84 years old, Sylvia, she had painted it, and it's really crazy looking, and we had to buy it back at the auction so we could show,
Yeah, and that's
the shows
nice
with
like
us,
here.
show what they can do.
And again, we'll be following up online and posting some photographs from the exhibit, so if you're watching today and you're frustrated that you can't see what we're all looking at in this room, you'll be able to see that online. So it's been a real pleasure talking to you today. Thank you very much, Bob and Linda Jones.
Thank you.
And thank you, Emma. Great production. And I do want to give a shout out to our friends at Adirondack Explorer magazine as well. If you'd like to look into what they're up to, your handle online is at Adirondack Explorer? .org. Okay.
I might add a little bit, I want to give thanks to Tom and Emma, because it wouldn't have happened if
Yes,
it's not that
that's right.
day, so
And thanks
thank
to
you.
Tom French as well.
Great job.
This recording will be available at TAUNY's YouTube channel. We are TAUNY, TAUNY, in YouTube or at YouTube. If you'd like to know what we're up to, and we present all different kinds of traditions from this region of northern New York, we are at the TAUNY Center on Facebook and Instagram, and we post daily about our activities. We're a very active organization, and we'll be, I'm sure, doing another live streaming soon. So thank you for joining us today, and we'll hope to see you either in person or online again soon. And